Right. 80% of these sites.
Will the Senate please come to order? We'll observe a moment of silence in lieu of a devotional. Thank you. Are there any announcements? Seeing none. We have H772 being on the calendar for notice and carrying an appropriation. Under Rule 31, it is referred to the Committee on Appropriations. Orders of the day. Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Apparently yesterday, in my efforts to clear up confusion, I created greater confusion about the path for the Ed Bill, H955. What I meant to say clearly yesterday and failed was that we will pass over that today. We will most likely pass over that tomorrow and bring it up Tuesday. With that said, Mr. President, I would move that we complete our third readings and then move to not the top of the calendar, but to H902 after that. Thank you.
We have H550 for third reading. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Seeing none, listen to the third reading of the bill.
H550, an act relating to gender equity within Vermont's correctional facilities.
Question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we've passed H550 in concurrence. We have H841 for third reading. Are there any amendments to be offered prior to third reading? Seeing none, listen to the third reading of the bill.
H841, an act relating to miscellaneous animal welfare procedures.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have passed H841 in concurrence with proposal of amendment. We now have H932 for third reading. Are there any amendments to be offered prior to third reading? Seeing none, listen to the third reading of the bill.
H932, an act relating to the regulation of forestry under Act 250.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had some questions both on and off the floor regarding this bill, and I wanted to just provide a little more clarity, if that's okay. There were some questions about my report, and I just want to clarify some things. The report that we got back recommended the provisions in the bill, the report I mentioned yesterday, and basically is to, the report wanted to make sure that forestry had the same exemption language and statute as farming. Farming, like logging and forestry, is not subject to Act 250 jurisdiction below elevation of 2,500 feet. And these amendments extend benefits already available to farming to logging and forestry. It puts into statute existing practice related to existing exemptions for logging and forestry, and clarifies that forestry, which is exempt from Act 250 below 2,500 feet, does not include the conversion of land to a use that would not be exempt from Act 250. And this is a question I got from the senator from Washington. For example, harvesting timber is exempt, but cutting down trees solely for the purpose of preparing a site for commercial construction is not exempt. So it's just the practice of forestry itself. And when a parcel does not have an Act 250 the other section is for when a parcel does not have an Act 250 permit. If that parcel is devoted to logging or forestry and a portion of the parcel is proposed to be used for activity that would require an Act 250 permit, the Act 250 jurisdiction is limited to the area for the non-exempt activity. Not all, nor shall the rest of the parcel remains exempt. So the non-exempt activity would be subject to Act 250, the rest would be exempt. The permit shall not impose conditions on the rest of the parcel, nor conflict with the acceptable management practices for logging jobs. And then striking the log and pulp concentration yards is reverting back to the previous law that were considered part of logging and forest. So this is striking them from a list of things that is not exempt so that to make them exempt again. And just going back to prior law and adding language that is nearly identical that already exists for farming and that is existing in practice. So just making it consistent with farming. So hopefully that clarifies my report from yesterday. The second thing I wanted to address is where did the 2,500 feet come from? So our amazing legislative counsel did a bunch of research. She went back and read the original Act 250 law and a lot of the documents related to it. And she reached out to a number of people at the Land Use Review Board to get some information. And the 2,500 feet is considered to be part of unique or fragile areas. And there's a document which I can provide to any of you who are interested in that provides scientific justification for 2,500 foot threshold, which describes the environment as fragile and includes mention of climate differences, greater rainfall, lower average temperatures, thinner soils which are easily compacted, larger proportion of steep slopes, susceptibility to erosion, and the challenge of establishing vegetative cover if disturbed in the higher elevation conditions, in addition to mention of rare plants and songbird habitat. There's a lot more information about it. Ultimately, there was no surprise to anyone in this chamber, a debate about whether it should be 2,500 feet or 2,000 feet. There were a lot of people who thought 2,000 feet was better because these fragile habitats exist above 2,000 feet. And ultimately, the political and scientific challenges, there was a compromise at 2,500 feet in 1970. And it was a really interesting, so I have a lot of information about the debate if anybody wants it. I'm happy to forward you the long email that I got about it. But needless to say, there were scientific and political reasons that in 1970 in the original Act 250, they came to the 2,500 feet as anything above that was not exempt. So thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we've passed H 932 in concurrence with proposal of amendment. We now have H 937 for third reading. Are there any amendments to be offered prior to third reading? Senator from Windham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a short amendment that is being handed out now. I had contemplated providing this yesterday on second reading, but needed some more time to follow up with folks just to make sure I knew what I was talking about. So, as senators may remember, last year we passed a comprehensive sealing and expungement bill, although it was not quite as comprehensive because there was some language that we unintentionally overlooked in which we needed to replace what became outdated language. So the amendment that is being handed out right now, it replaces the word expungement with the word sealing, Title 13 VSA 7551. This is a section of law related to limitations on bail for certain misdemeanors under certain conditions. This has been current law for about 8 years. And while this amendment is a technical change, it will provide much needed clarification for courts throughout the state. So currently when courts and practitioners are trying to interpret this outdated language, it tends to cause confusion and also different interpretations and different applications of the law in different jurisdictions. The amendment is intended to update the language that should have been included in our sealing and expungement bill. And the purpose is, again, to reduce confusion across the state and reduce the different applications of the law. The straw poll in committee was 5-0-0, and I ask for the Senate support.
The question is, shall the Senate proposal of amendment be amended as offered by the senator from Wyndham? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Where am I? The question now is, yes, that is the question. Are there any further amendments? Listen to the third reading of the bill.
H 937, an act relating to miscellaneous judiciary procedures.
The question is, shall the Senate proposal of amendment, no, wrong question. Shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have passed H 937 in concurrence with proposal of amendment. We now have 938 for third reading. Are there any amendments to be offered prior to third reading? Seeing none, listen to the third reading of the bill.
H 938, an act relating to establishing the Vermont Homelessness Response Continuum.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we've passed H 938 in concurrence with proposal of amendment. Yep. We will be passing over H 955. And that brings us to H 902, which was introduced on February 17th of 2026. It was referred to the Committee on Government Operations, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that it ought to pass in concurrence. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 902, an act relating to approval of amendments to the Charter of the City of Barre.
Recognize the senator from Rutland, Senator Collmore, for the report of the Committee on Government Operations.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are three sections to this bill. Section 1 is boilerplate language that approves the proposed amendments to the City of Barre's charter. It also indicates the date of voter approval, May 13, 2025. Section 2 is the meat of the bill, and it contains two substantive changes to the city's charter, both occurring in Title 24. First, Section 313 is amended so that after the City Council authorizes the sale or lease of property, that transfer may be executed by not only the mayor, but now also by the city manager or an authorized city councilor. The vote on that section was 522 in favor and 293 against. The second change to the charter has to do with the payment of taxes in subdivision B in section 601. It's amended that if approved by the city council, the city may retain any unexpended budget funds as an undesignated fund balance for future use, but only in an amount up to 10% of the last budget. Any amount remaining in excess of that 10% must be used in the subsequent budget to reduce the tax rate. The vote on that was even more indicative of a positive vote. 618 voted in favor, 174 voted against. And Section 3 sets the bill to take effect on passage. The committee heard from the amendment sponsor, legislative counsel, and I guess I have to say now, former city manager of Berry City. I understand he's accepted a position to the north of Berry. Committee vote was 5-0-0, and we asked the Senate to concur.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Chittenden.
If I might ask a question of the presenter, Mr.
The
President.
presenter's interrogated.
I'm looking at page 2, and my question is about the phrasing. It says, "Any funds retained pursuant to this provision shall be limited to an amount not greater than now 10% of the city," and here's my question, "general fund budget expenses." And I'm wondering if the senator can explain budget expenses.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will attempt to do that. The current cap is 5%. And the proposed change would double that cap to allow the city council to vote to retain up to 10% of the city's general fund budget. The impetus of the charter change was the aftermath, as you might imagine, of the 2023 flood. Going into the recovery from that flood, the city of Berry had retained the full 5% of the available or allowable fund balance, which equated to about $600,000. And they had built up the fund balance, like many other communities across the state, from vacancy savings from positions that they were struggling to fill. So it was not a fund balance that they wanted or desired. They would much rather have preferred to have had those positions filled. But because of the delay with FEMA on occasion, it allowed the city to immediately effect repairs that were caused by the 2023 flood.
And that's helpful in another way. I guess to try to explain the question a little better, if the word on line 3, expenses, were not there, if it just said the city's general fund budget, I would understand it immediately. I'm wondering, is the general fund one thing, the general fund budget one thing, and then general fund budget expenses another thing? I don't understand, I suppose, Mr. President, what the word expenses is doing there.
I would like to consult with our legal counsel, Mr. President.
We'll take a brief recess. Will Senate please come to order? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I again want to thank the President Pro Tem for an excellent question, and also thank the senior senator from Addison for part of the answer, but we are going to have more of that on third reading. In any budget, there is a revenue and an expense side to things, and we believe, and we will have, again, a more clarifying answer on third reading, whether the budget expenses are what we're talking about, that the city has already voted to spend this amount of money, and at the end of that year, there's money left over. So I appreciate the questions, and we'll have clarification on third reading.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H 902. We have on the calendar for action H 527, which was passed by the House on May 19th of 2026. It was referred to the Committee on Finance, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House that the bill be amended as it appears starting on page 3865 of today's calendar, and that with such proposal of amendment, the bill ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 527, an act relating to extending the sunset of 30 VSA Section 248A.
Recognize the senator from Chittenden, Senator Chittenden, for the report of the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remember fondly the previous senator from Grand Isle who always said nothing ever sunsets around here. That's proven true. This bill, the thrust of what it's going to do is extend a sunset for the 7th time. But I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got to that place and why it's still useful to continue to extend the sunset. H 527 is an act relating to extending the sunset, also in legislative council parlance, a prospective repeal, as they like to refer to it as, of 30 VSA Section 248A. To truly understand the need for this bill, we have to look at the intersection of federal law, our state's regulatory obligations, and the historical intent of this legislature. First, let's talk about the federal reality. Under the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996, state and local governments are legally required to act on wireless facility applications within a reasonable period of time, in quotations. To put teeth to that requirement, the FCC established strict deadlines known as the shot clock rules. For standard cell towers, the shot clock is 90 days for co-locations and 150 days for new structures. For small cell infrastructure, these clocks shrink to just 60 and 90 days. Under strict rules that took effect in 2019, if a state or town misses these deadlines, the law presumes the government, us in this case, or the municipality, is illegally prohibiting service, putting the heavy burden on us to defend ourselves in court. This is exactly why Section 248A is necessary. Our Public Utility Commission operates under strict procedures designed to ensure Vermont acts within the federally imposed time mandates. When a complete application comes in, the PUC's rules mandate a decision within 60 to 180 days, depending on the project scope. For minor and undisputed project, decisions happen very fast, often even without a hearing. Because the PUC moves so efficiently, Vermont safely and consistently complies with federal law. If we let Section 248A expire on July 1st, 2026, just weeks from now, telecommunications siting would default back to local municipal zoning and Act 250. While well-intentioned, those fragmented processes are simply not designed to meet a strict 60 or 90-day federal shot clock. But maybe they should. But that'll be for next time. That was my attempt at a small regulatory joke. All right, didn't land well. All right, we would be exposing, if we did that, we would be exposing our towns and our state to significant legal vulnerability in potential federal lawsuits, not to mention delaying or thwarting critical improvements to our cell telecommunications service coverage in Vermont. Mr. President, this legislature has long recognized that Section 248A is a dynamic evolving tool. When we created it in 2007, it was meant only for batched multi-site applications. Over the last 2 decades, we have used this sunset mechanism, prospective repeal, not to kill the law, but to systematically improve it. In 2009, we extended the sunset and we expanded it to allow for individual applications. In 2014, we added robust municipal participation requirements, public guidance documents, and forced the PUC to give substantial deference to our towns. Then in 2015, we extended it again, and we extended the local notice period from 45 to 60 days to give towns more breathing room. Then we did it again in 2017 and 2020, and we gave the Department of Public Service more power to investigate non-compliance and demanded reports on how to refine the criteria. And then just in 2023, we tasked the department in finding new ways to make it even easier for the public and towns to participate. The history of Section 248A proves it is not a static piece of legislation. Every few years, we extend the sunset so we can look under the hood and make sure our communities have a strong voice where infrastructure goes. This year, your Senate Finance Committee continued to improve upon the past work of prior legislatures with the amendment before you. In addition to extending the sunset for another 3 years to 2029, this amendment will now mandate a public meeting for non-de minimis projects. The actual antonym for de minimis is actually material, but we all know what de minimis is. So non-de minimis, or better said, material projects in legislative parlance. Under current law, a public meeting between the developer and the town during a 60-day notice window will only happen if the town's legislative body or planning commission explicitly requests one. With this change in the amendment before you, a public meeting would now be mandatory for large projects. The town shall hold it and the developer shall attend it within the 60-day window. Importantly, this amended language that's before you exempts minor projects. To keep the mandatory meeting rule from creating unnecessary gridlock for modest in scale projects, the amendment carves out specific exceptions. A public meeting is not forced if the project is a de minimis modification, minor changes to existing equipment, nor if a facility is of limited size and scope, small scale equipment. And the department is already required to take the community's feedback and information from that meeting and directly use it in the to form their official recommendations to the Public Utility Commission, and to decide if they need to hire extra experts to review the project. The big picture takeaway is that this shift would strip away the burden. This amendment would strip away the burden from local towns to actively track so they will no longer have to actively track and request a meeting when a new cell tower or telecom project is proposed. Instead, it will force the telecom providers to face the community and answer questions by default, unless the project is minor, and then it will continue. So passing H527 does two vital things. It keeps Vermont safely compliant with federal law so our connectivity build-out doesn't freeze, and it continues the process of continuous improvement, integrating as much public participation as possible within our federal regulatory constraints. Your Senate Finance Committee heard from many individuals on this, Mr. President. Happy to respond if there's questions. And your committee vote was 6-0-1 in support of this bill, and we ask this Senate to concur. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Finance? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the presenter?
The reporter's interrogated.
So you mentioned large projects and small projects. Can you differentiate? Give me an example of each.
What I would have for a de minimis project would be minor changes to existing equipment. So if you've got one of those boxes up on a telephone pole and you're just going in to upgrade it, or maybe change out the power supply, or maybe the antenna. So I would interpret that. I could get back to you with more specifics at I could get back to the senator with more specifics at third reading if so needed. A facility of limited size and scope would be small scale equipment. So to me, that would be very minor things, maybe a new UPS, an uninterruptible power supply, or other devices that would be supporting existing telecom infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the reporter, but one more final question is, who determines which projects are small and large?
I will say during this process, I have a great deal of confidence in the PUC, without mentioning any individual names, but the representatives from there understand these mechanisms, and they have this very clearly articulated through multiple tracks. And so I think the definitions are already clearly defined and understood by both the telecom providers and, to my understanding, also the communities in which these things are being deployed. So to answer the Senator's question, I'd say the PUC has a very well-structured, well-tuned system to identify through their application process whether it would qualify as a small-scale or de minimis project.
I thank the reporter, Mr. President. So my concern, Mr. President, is that I've got 3 towns in my district that are taking the time to go into the detail to come up with a communication annex to their town plan. They go to the regional planning commission, planning commission says that it meets the regional plan, and then the town has no say in it. So I'm concerned about this bill, and that's why I will be voting no on it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Finance? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you've proposed to the House to amend the bill as proposed by the Committee on Finance. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have ordered third reading of H 527. We have on the calendar for action H 817, which was passed by the House on May 12th of 2026. It was referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House that the bill be amended as it appears starting on page 3867 of today's calendar, and that with such proposal of amendment, the bill ought to pass. Affecting the revenues of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Finance, which recommends that the bill ought to pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 817, an act relating to mental health, literacy, and peer-to-peer supports in schools.
And just as a correction, I believe that was expenditures and referred to appropriations. Recognize the senator from Chittenden, Senator Gulick, for the report of the Committee on Health and Welfare.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe we're all aware at this time the increased need for mental health services for our youth in the state of Vermont. There is a growing concern that the kids are not all right and that we need to help them out. Most recently, you may have seen that the AOE did a school survey, and what they learned from that survey of schools is that the number of staff needed in schools to address youth mental health has gone up from 142 in FY22 to 790, approaching 800 in FY25. That is a huge increase, and it's something that we have to pay close attention to. This bill, H 817, is a bill relating to mental health, literacy, and peer-to-peer supports in schools. It came to us from the other body, and in its form at that time, it was a bill that sought to recognize that student mental health is both an urgent problem and also a very complex one. This work expands on the work of Act 112 from a few years ago that expanded grants for youth mental health. And I was teaching at the time and was able to see the fruits of some of that labor. It was wonderful. H 817 is looking to expand student supports in schools using a peer-to-peer structure. So as we all know, youth do very well when it comes to interacting with their peers and getting help from them and sharing with them in ways that they don't always feel comfortable with adults. We thought this approach, we being the Health and Welfare Committee, thought this approach was interesting and compelling, but we did have some concerns that there was no funding included in the bill, and we are very sensitive to unfunded mandates when it comes to our education system, especially at this juncture that we're in right now. We also had some implications about formalizing a peer-to-peer structure. We wanted to learn more about it and know more about it. Then we heard from great testimony from the AOE, who said very thoughtful comments, emphasizing their gratitude for the focus on student mental health, but also their concerns around schools already managing multiple and sometimes competing expectations. And we've heard that over and over again. They also had concerns about standing up a new program that may operate in parallel with existing efforts. They would like the time to develop a unified statewide framework that aligns education and mental health support systems, clarifies expectations for schools, and ensures equitable access to high-quality supports. You know, when we think about these extra positions that we've had to add in schools, we know that this is a cost driver, right? This is one of the things that's driving up costs in our schools, ergo increasing our property taxes. So when we think about the system, we've got to be thinking about those mental health costs that are coming from in-house, but also contracting outside of our schools. So the Senate Health and Welfare Committee put the focus on statewide guidance, alignment, and capacity building, led by the AOE and the Department of Mental Health. We need a unified system guiding how schools access and integrate mental health supports. So if you look at the bill, which the strike all amendment, I should say, which is on page 3867 of your calendar, you will see in section 1 the intent language around mental health literacy and peer support initiatives. You will see in section 2, as part of the 2028 budgets, we ask that the Department of Mental Health and the AOE explore potential funding sources for this unified approach. And in section 3, we ask that on or before January 15th, 2027, the Department of Mental Health and the AOE and stakeholders submit an inventory of existing mental health programming and services around the state of Vermont that exist in schools to the House Committee on Appropriations and House Healthcare, and to the Senate Committee on Appropriations and Health and Welfare. And in that report, they should include a recommendation to integrate that mental health literacy and the peer-to-peer programming described in section 1. The effective date for this will be July 1st of 2026. We heard incredible testimony from some students in the Winooski School District who were really in favor of a peer-to-peer program, and they had received some excellent assistance in their school. We heard from the Office of Legislative Counsel, the reporter of the bill. We heard from the Department of Mental Health and the Joint Fiscal Office. Our vote in committee was 5-0-0, and we ask for the Senate's concurrence or approval. Thank you, Mr. President.
I recognize the senator from Chittenden Southeast, Senator Lyons, for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Senate Appropriations Committee is very supportive of the bill as it came from Senate Health and Welfare, and understand the significant work that can happen and is needed in our schools. This bill actually is less than de minimis. So there is less than plus something over 0. So 0 or below in the bill. We also understand there's opportunity here for funding going forward. And your Committee on Appropriations voted 6-0-1 to support the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support, but I do have a question, so if I can interrogate the presenter of the
The
amendment.
presenter's interrogated.
Okay, I'm looking at page 3867 in section 2. It's starting on the end of the second line, says, shall explore potential funding sources for the mental health literary and peer-to-peer programming. I'm wondering if that's a Scribner's error, it should be literacy?
It is a Scribner's error, and we did bring that up in committee. But it is a Scribner's error. It should be literacy, and thank you.
Okay. I think the reporter.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've proposed to the House to amend the bill as proposed by the Committee on Health and Welfare. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H 817. We have on the calendar for action H 928, which was passed by the House on May 12th of 2026. It was referred to the Committee on Natural Resources, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House that the bill be amended as it appears starting on page 3868 of today's calendar, and that with such proposal of amendment, the bill ought to pass. Affecting the revenues of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Finance, which recommends that the bill ought to pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment as recommended by the Committee on Natural Resources, with further proposal of amendment as found in your calendar today on page 3871. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 928, an act relating to technical corrections to fish and wildlife statutes.
Recognize the senator from Rutland, Senator Williams, for the report of the Committee on Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill makes a series of technical and administrative updates to Vermont Fish and Wildlife law. The purpose of the bill is to improve clarity, consistency, and implementation within existing statutes. It does not create major new policy initiatives. Instead, it addresses operational and technical issues identified by the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Agency of Natural Resources. Briefly, this bill does the following. First, it updates portions of Vermont's uniform point system relating to hunting and fishing and wildlife violations. These changes clarify and adjust point values for certain violations to better align the endorsement provisions throughout the statute. Second, the bill authorizes the Commissioner of Fish and Wildlife to allow certain hunting licenses to expire 365 days from the date of issuance, rather than strictly on December 31st. This provides additional administrative flexibility and convenience for the license holders. Third, the bill includes several administrative and technical corrections related to licensing procedures and statutory references to improve consistency and implementation. Fourth, the bill makes clarifications related to champion lands, reporting requirements, and associated statutory language. Finally, the bill contains technical updates involving PFAS-related statutory references and other conforming language corrections necessary for consistency within Vermont laws. Mr. President, these are primarily technical and administrative corrections intended to improve the operation and clarity of existing fish and wildlife.
President, point of information.
Senator from Chittenden, what is your point of information?
I'm in the calendar on page 3869, and I'm wondering if the sixth instance of amendment is a part of this report.
Well, Senator, we'll take a brief recess. Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. It seems as though there was a little confusion between committees and apparently the Attorney General's office. So I would move that we postpone action on this bill and move to the next with the intention of coming back to it tomorrow.
So we will postpone action on H 928. We are passing over S 243. That brings us to H 648. Senator from Addison.
Okay, thank you.
We're not there yet, Senator from
Oh, I'm
Addison.
sorry.
We
You said-
wondered why everyone was standing up. The House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment on H 648. The House has considered the Senate proposal of amendment and has concurred therein with further proposal of amendment. The question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment? Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, I will bring you back a few weeks to my riveting floor report on this miscellaneous banking and insurance bill, which had you all on the edge of your seats. This is a further proposal of an amendment from the House that your Finance Committee has reviewed and has recommended concurrence with the House. But let me just take you through it. It is long, but it is basically two things. One is that you might recall in the bill as it passed out of the Senate, we extended the hold on what are commonly known as crypto kiosks, saying that we were not allowing a moratorium on them, saying we were not allowing more crypto kiosks in the state of Vermont. These have been an issue throughout the country. There are many states that have been taking action on further regulating and banning these types of machines for cryptocurrencies. They're basically cash machines that for cryptocurrency or virtual currency. And the Senate extended the moratorium on it. We had considered actually just banning them, but we didn't have time before we had to send the bill back. Meanwhile, the House was taking testimony on it and moving forward with a full ban on the crypto kiosks. And this is true for many, many states. I think 26 states have taken action and 29 states have taken action, many adopting full bans, including Minnesota, Tennessee, Indiana. So it's not a partisan issue. It's both red and blue states have taken this because there have been so many concerns with consumers. So essentially the first three instances of amendment implement that permanent ban on crypto kiosk machines in Vermont. The reason it takes so much language is it does retain some of the protections we have for consumers. There are 2 crypto kiosks in Vermont right now. So if consumers have issues with some of their interactions with those, we wanted to retain in statute the mechanisms for which they can get relief for any fraud that might happen. So that is retained, and there's a sort of period of transition and then a complete ban for any new machines, and then the old machines within by July 1st of 2026, but retaining some of the legacy language in case there are issues. So that's the first 3 instances of amendment from the House, from the other body. The 4th instance of amendment is about a different issue, which are merchant cash advances. And merchant cash advances are a sales-based financing transaction repaid over a time as a percentage of sales or revenue, in which the payment amount may increase or decrease according to the volume of sales or revenue received from the business. Or they are a factoring transition in the purchase of accounts receivable that includes a claim for payment in exchange for goods or services. Essentially, these are sort of loans that are provided and many times to businesses, saying we're going to give you a lot of cash up front, and then you can repay it in addition to some percentage of your sales. And it is, just to put it plainly, often kind of a scam, and businesses don't realize it until after the fact, and they get into financial trouble. So there've been some concerning issues. The House started working on this. They couldn't get to it by crossover. They continued to take testimony and added it to the bill. So the fourth instance of amendment basically requires these entities that are merchant cash advance organizations to be licensed by DFR. So it doesn't ban these types of transactions, but it requires licensure and regulation by DFR. Right now, they're unregulated. So this is to prevent issues from these types of predatory loans in Vermont. This was passed by the House Committee and the House unanimously, and supported unanimously. There was one senator absent, but everyone who was there was unanimous in support of these changes from the House, and we recommend concurrence, Mr. President. Thank you.
The question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment on H 648? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the Senate has concurred in the House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment on H 648. Gotcha. The House has considered Senate proposal of amendment to H 941 and has concurred therein with further proposal of amendment. The question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment with further proposal of amendment? Oops, I wasn't supposed to get quite that far yet. Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry for a little bit of the, we're going to get through this very easily. We're going to do a whole different thing than what we were doing today. We were actually going to ask for a conference committee, but meeting with the pro tem and the lieutenant governor, we come up with a different solution, which was to present our proposal of amendment back to the House. The House has took H 941 and anything that we wanted to do, and they recommended three proposals of amendment. Two of them kind of the same. One of them was that they really were wanting to get a restriction on how many chickens could be in somebody's backyard. And they struck that no municipality can regulate and say that somebody can't have chickens as long as there's no more than 12. Now, the municipality can say that there can be more than that, but at any given time, people, as long as there's no roosters, anybody has the right to have at least 12 chickens. And if there's a disagreement and it's 12 chickens or more, it's what the higher amount is. Also in that agreement, which is basically the second proposal of amendment, says that there can be no ratites. Ratites are emus and ostriches. So at any given time, the municipalities can regulate that there can be no emus or ratites. The third purpose of amendment was that they want to do a study studying all of what we had done in agriculture all year long, and then report back. We found it kind of funny that the study that they were proposing didn't include farmers, but nonetheless, I'll tell you where we got to. The Senate Committee of Agriculture reluctantly went along with the proposal of amendments that would limit how many chickens could be in a backyard should the municipalities determine that that's what they wanted to do. Knowing full well that they couldn't regulate any 12 or that anybody had the right to have 12 chickens. But after that, the municipalities had the right to weigh in on that. The ratites we were fine with, which again is ostriches and emus. The third, we have said that we could not go along with. So I do have a proposal of amendment that says that Senator Ingalls moves that the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendments to the Senate proposal of amendment with further proposal of amendments by striking out Section 5, Municipal Regulation of Farm and Study report in its entirety and by renumbering the remaining sections to be numerically correct. The reason why we got to that and we didn't call the committee of conference is because good communications with everyone, including the pro tems, including the lieutenant governor, and with the other committee and the other body says, hey, yeah, as long as you can agree to the chickens and the restrictions on the emus and ostriches, yeah, strike that study. They had preferred we just send it right back to them and get it all said and done, but that's not the way the process works. So therefore, here we are right now at this. So I would ask that the body concur with the work that we've done. Again, that communities have the right to anything over 12 chickens to regulate, and that communities have the right to say no to ostriches and emus, and that we're striking out the study that was been proposed. Thank you, Mr. President.
So the question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment with further proposal of amendment as offered by the senator from Essex? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the senator has concurred in the House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment with further proposal of amendment as offered by Senator Ingalls on H 941. We have on the calendar for action H 953, introduced on April 1st of 2026. It was referred to the Committee on Government Operations, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that it ought to pass in concurrence. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 953, an act relating to approval of an amendment to the Charter of the Town of Panton.
Recognize the Senator from Orleans, Senator Morley, for the report of the Committee on Government Operations.
Thank you, Mr. President. So H 953, as you just heard, is an act relating to approval of amendment to the Charter of the Town of Panton. There are 3 sections in this bill. The first one is the typical section that you hear with all charters, and the General Assembly approves the amendment of the Charter of the Town of Panton as set forth in this act. The voters of the town approved the proposal of amendment on May 15, 2025. Section 2 is the recall of elected town officers. An elected town officer may be removed from office subject to the following conditions and procedures. A1, a written petition signed by not less than 15% of the registered voters of the town seeking the removal of a town officer requesting a vote of the town at a regular or special town meeting called for the purpose shall be filed with the select board and the town clerk. 2, the petition is filed not more than 60 days and not less than 47 days before the next regular town meeting. The select board shall place the question of whether the elected officer shall be removed on the warning for the next regular town meeting. Otherwise, the select board shall call a special town meeting to be held within 45 days after receiving the petition to vote on whether the elected officer shall be removed. In either case, the recall vote shall be held by Australian ballot. 3, when the petition removal is approved by a majority of the votes cast at the regular or special town meeting, the town officer named in the petition shall cease to hold office. 4, the officer shall be removed only if at least as many registered voters of the town vote to approve the petition as voted to elect said officer in the most recent election wherein the officer was elected, or at least 1/3 of the registered voters of the town vote, whichever is fewer. Subsection B, a vacancy resulting from the recall of an officer shall be filled in the manner prescribed by law. And C, a recall petition shall not be brought against any individual more than once within a 12-month period. I just want to say that there are currently 16 municipalities that have this recall provision in their charter. To name a few of them, they are Stowe, Hardwick, Essex, Bennington, Linden, and St. Johnsbury. So this isn't something new. We've done this before on charter changes. And at the special town meeting, there were 103 voters for the charter change, or voted in the charter change. 56 voters said yes, 39 voters said no, and there were 8 blanks. Also, we heard from the sponsor of the bill. We heard from Legislative Council. We heard from the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, and the Town Clerk Treasurer of Panton. All said, being Mr. President, we ask for the Senate to concur. Thank you.
And the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the reporter?
The reporter's interrogated.
Thank you. Mr. President, the reporter said that this is in the case in multiple towns, and the reporter gave a few examples. Is the provision of not more than 60 days and less than 47 days included in those other charters?
Mr. President, I don't believe so. I think they're all a little bit different.
Okay.
What I meant by saying, Mr. President, about that was there's a recall of elected town officers in those other
I see.
municipalities.
Did you get any indication from your witnesses about the why this not more than 60 or less than 47? That's very specific and only leaves like 14 days. Is that they wanted the petitions to be filed during this 2-week time period? Is that the logic?
Are you talking about?
I'm sorry, on line 19.
Okay, so if the petition is filed not more than 60 days and not less than 47 days before the next regular town meeting, the select board shall place the question on whether.
Oh, I'm sorry, I understand. So it's within 2 weeks of a town meeting that
Correct,
I see,
Mr.
I
President.
see, I get it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H 953. We have on the calendar for action which one are we on? Oh, yes, right. I believe we're passing over H 710.
Yes.
We have on the calendar for action H 757, which was passed by the House on May 12th of 2026. It was referred to the Committee on Economic Development, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House that the bill be amended as it appears starting on page 3906 of today's calendar, and that with such proposal of amendment, the bill ought to pass. Affecting the revenues of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Finance, which recommends that the bill ought to pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 757, an act relating to manufactured homes and limited equity cooperatives.
Recognize the senator from Chittenden, Senator Chittenden, for the report of the Committee on Economic Development.
This is gonna be a long one. All right. Mr. President, To address the housing crisis, this bill modernizes our regulatory approach to manufactured housing, a critical part of the solution to build the homes Vermont needs. While we used to refer to manufactured houses as mobile homes, that term is now inaccurate. The vast majority of these houses are not mobile at all. Instead, they are permanently secured to foundations. They can be found both as standalone residences on individual lots and within manufactured home communities, the neighborhoods we once called mobile home parks. Today's manufactured homes bear little resemblance to the outdated trailers you might be imagining. Modern units are constructed according to a rigorous, standardized national building code established by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, commonly known as the HUD code. They are sturdy, long-lasting, and build equity over time at rates comparable to traditional site-built homes. Mr. President, Vermont is currently grappling with a severe housing crisis driven by a lack of inventory and skyrocketing prices. Manufactured housing is vital to our state because in today's economic climate, it represents the only type of housing that remains affordable to the average Vermonter without requiring public assistance. Because our state funds for housing subsidies are limited, it is absolutely critical that we streamline the process of buying, selling, financing, and zoning these homes. This is precisely what H757 aims to achieve. The people who live in manufactured homes represent a broad cross-section of our communities. Working-class families, seniors, individuals with disabilities, young parents, widows and widowers, retirees looking to downsize, and neighbors living on fixed incomes. The majority of these households fall into low to moderate income brackets, and they achieve home ownership with minimal, if any, reliance on state aid. Furthermore, Mr. President, many of our modern manufactured home communities are organized as owner-occupied limited equity cooperatives, or LECs. Under this structure, residents collectively own the land via a nonprofit or co-op entity while maintaining individual ownership of their actual homes. They pay property taxes on their homes and chip in for shared neighborhood upkeep through what is typically called lot rent. Every household owns a share in the cooperative, ensuring everyone has an equal vote in community decisions which are managed democratically by a resident-elected board of directors. H757 irons out long-standing discrepancies in how manufactured homes are bought, titled, zoned, and taxed. By doing so, it establishes a transparent, predictable framework for homeowners, financial institutions, towns, and state agencies alike. Additionally, the bill lowers the financial barrier to entry by cutting back the sales and use taxes that manufactured homes are currently hit with, taxes that traditional site-built homes are spared from paying. The legislation also reinforces a key principle. Manufactured, modular, and prefabricated housing must be treated comparably to and fairly to site-built homes under local land use regulations. Despite current statutes, certain municipalities continue to erect zoning hurdles that restrict where these homes can be placed, inadvertently blocking access to affordable homeownership. Finally, the bill explicitly defines the legal classification of resident-owned manufactured home cooperatives under Vermont law, unlocking greater access to state grants and critical funding streams. Taken together, Mr. President, these updates build a cohesive, reliable system that treats manufactured housing as permanent, indispensable pillar of Vermont's housing solution. Now I'd like to walk through the sections of the bill. Section 1, in this section 2601, the definition of permanently sited is being amended to clarify that not all aspects of the definition are required to be met in order for a mobile home to be permanently sited. This is relevant when an owner goes to finance a mobile home, as the home must be financed as real estate if the home is permanently sited and the owner owns the land on which the mobile home will be located. Second, in section 2604, the underlying bill is making technical amendments to the section governing when a mobile home must be transferred via a warranty or quitclaim deed. The amendments clarify which subsection governs each deed process and would remove the requirement that a mobile homeowner get permission from the landowner if a mobile homeowner seeks to sell and move the home off the land owned by someone else. Section 2 and 3 are amending the chapter related to limited equity cooperatives. Before going into the underlying language of the bill, you should know that a limited equity cooperative is a type of housing corporation that is designed as a collective home ownership model to serve individuals of low and moderate income. The individuals own a share of the cooperative corporation that owns and leases the housing or land back to the members. In section 2, the underlying bill proposes to include the statutory definition of mobile home within the Cooperative Housing Corporation chapter in 11 VSA chapter 14. And then in section 3, the underlying bill proposes to Mr. President, I'm going to be speaking to both the amendment and the underlying bill. I hope I don't need permission.
Please do.
All right, great. So the underlying, in section 3 of the underlying bill, proposes to do the following for a mobile home park that is registered as a limited equity cooperative. The underlying bill would prohibit the subleasing of units within a mobile home park that is a limited equity cooperative unless the member can demonstrate a hardship to the board overseeing the cooperative. In addition, the member would be limited to subleasing to an individual that meets the definition of low or moderate income and would only be authorized to sublease for the actual cost of the unit to the member who owns the mobile home, including mortgage and utility costs. In addition, this section adds into statute that a mobile home park organized as a limited equity cooperative shall be treated for the purposes of state funding and grants as if it were registered as a nonprofit for public purpose and for public benefit. This will not alter specific funding requirements in any program funding or grant source. The language also specifies that nothing is intended to alter the tax treatment of these entities. Section 4 amends municipal zoning statutes. This will require that any municipality that authorizes year-round residential development must also authorize the placement of mobile homes in the same locations as other housing. Sections 5 and 6 amends the sales tax treatment of mobile homes. This section will change tax treatment of mobile homes sold as personal property to match the tax treatment of mobile homes sold as real property by, 1, increasing the sales tax and exemption for manufactured homes to approximately the property transfer tax that traditional site-built houses pay, which is less. We'll talk more about that in the fiscal code. It also, secondly, creates a sales and use tax exemption for energy-efficient manufactured homes to match the same that we have in the property transfer tax exemption provided to energy-efficient homes. Section 7 is a little bit of session law related to the Secretary of State. This session law provision would authorize, just making clear, that the Secretary of State can update the business organization status for limited equity cooperatives registered with the Secretary of State to ensure the registration accurately reflects the correct business organization type. Section 8 is a statutory revision changes. This section authorizes the Office of Legislative Counsel to make changes to statutory language during the statutory revision process to change wording from mobile home to manufactured home where appropriate. This is in alignment with how the federal HUD programs label what used to be called mobile homes, but are now referred to in federal regulations as manufactured homes. Section 9 is the effective date upon passage, except the sales and use tax sections are currently set to take effect on January 1st, 2027, but it is very likely you will be seeing an amendment on that effective date at third reading to push that out a year for reasons we will elaborate at that point. Now I'm going to speak to the amendment before you.
As the senator from Finance?
No, still the SEGDA.
Okay, sorry.
Almost there, Mr. President. All right, so I was just speaking to the underlying bill, and now I'm speaking to the amendment that comes from the Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs Committee. So this amendment is first has a new section 3A that the Senate Economic Development Committee is proposing to sunset the language of prospective repeal in the underlying bill that would specify that a mobile home park registered as a limited equity cooperative shall be treated as a nonprofit for state funding for grant purposes. This sunset will be 1 year from now. So this isn't in my script, so to speak, but I'll try to elaborate to this. It is unclear when this happened, but at some point over the past 20 or 30 years, the Secretary of State's office stopped classifying mobile home parks, manufactured home parks, as nonprofits. They used to be nonprofits, and it's still unclear to me, though I have sent multiple emails, as to when this was changed, but there was just an interpretation by a Secretary of State's office, probably what I'm hearing when they transition from one system to the next, and they really truly aren't nonprofits. So they do have a board, and they aren't. They do have low and moderate income as their statute. But the problem is that the ones that were originally classified in statute as nonprofits are gaining access to grants and state funds and some federal funds that are really critical for sewer, stormwater upgrades. But other ones that, since that system change, don't have access to those same services. This is we're sunsetting this language because it's unclear how best to accomplish fairness in all of the different parks of the same type, addressing the discrepancy in treatment by administrative office. Since it's unclear perfectly how this will materialize, your Senate Economic Development Committee felt most comfortable sunsetting this treatment 1 year from now, and simultaneously with the second part of your amendment, asking for is we're asking for a report from the Department of Housing and Community Development to come back to the General Assembly next year with information that we don't currently have, identifying all state funding, grant, and loan programs available to mobile home parks for infrastructure improvements with an analysis on the eligibility and regulatory barriers prohibiting access to the funds for mobile home parks registered as limited equity cooperatives under 11 VSA Chapter 14. That will allow next year's legislature to be more precise in how we treat these entities, while this language will allow for greater fairness between now and then for these limited equity cooperatives to have equal access to the state and local grants that are critically important to many of these entities. So lastly, the proposed amendment from the committee is to update the effective date to make the sunset section effective on July 1st, 2027. Your Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs Committee voted 5-0-0 in support of this bill. We heard from many individuals, happy to elaborate in Q&A if necessary, and I'll be standing up in a minute to speak to it from a finance perspective.
Senator from Chittenden for the Committee on Finance, and it is quite fine for you to remain standing unless you like doing the deep knee bends.
I need them. All right. Thank you, Mr. President. So your Senate Finance Committee did review this bill, and we did identify that it would increase the sales tax exemption for sales of all manufactured homes from 40% to 90%, and provide a sales tax exemption for energy efficient manufactured homes. That would reduce sales tax revenues to the Ed Fund by approximately $200,000 in fiscal year 27 through the increase of the exemption on manufactured home sales receipts from the sales tax increase from 40 to 90%. That piece would reduce by approximately $500,000 annually afterwards. Absent other changes in policy, this statewide homestead property yield and/or statewide non-homestead property tax rate may need to be adjusted to account for this foregone revenue from this exemption. So that will be addressed in a coming amendment, which we will be pushing that out a year or two just to make this year a little bit more straightforward as all the balls are moving in the air. So you will be seeing a floor amendment to move that out at least a year, if not two. More to come at third reading. All right, so section 5 through 11 have some tax revisions. Currently manufactured homes can either be subject to the sales and use tax or the property transfer tax, depending on whether the manufactured home is considered tangible personal property or real property. I didn't say this in the previous report, so I'm elaborating on the finance piece here. Homes sold as tangible personal property are subject to the statewide 6% sales tax. Under current law, 40% of that value of a manufactured home is exempt from the sales tax. This exemption is designed to match the value of labor in a traditional construction site-built home, which is not subject to the sales tax, and results in an effective sales tax rate on the manufactured homes of about 3.6%. Accordingly, according to the 2025 tax exemption report, the full 6% sales tax would raise $1 million a year on manufactured homes, but meaning the current 40% sales tax exemption results in today about a $400,000 foregone revenue in current practice in the year 2026. Foregone revenue would increase with this change in this bill by approximately $200,000 this year, but again, we're going to address that in an amendment. And with a January 1st for the following year, it will increase the foregone revenue of about $500,000 annually starting in fiscal year 2028 if the exemption is increased, as this bill proposes, to 90%. Absent other changes in the policy, the statewide homestead property yield and or statewide non-homestead property tax rate may need to be adjusted to account for this. But again, this is about equal and fair treatment of manufactured homes to how we treat stick-built homes. Right now, they're paying 6% sales tax minus the 40% exemption, effectively 3.6%. When you buy a stick-built home, you're only paying that property transfer tax, which is also varied. So we backed into this calculation to try to get to an equal treatment tax-wise between a manufactured home and a site-built, stick-built, site or stick-built home. Manufactured homes sold as real property are subject to the property transfer tax. 2 criteria to define a home as real property. It must be affixed to the ground and finance as real estate. To finance a manufactured home as real estate, the transfer of property must include a warranty or quitclaim deed. Manufactured homes that are transferred as real estate pay PTT and may pay the 0.22% clean water surcharge depending on the value and the use of property. Based on property transfer tax data, the average effective tax rate on manufactured home transactions is approximately 0.7%, including the clean water surcharge, and approximately 0.6% for the property transfer tax alone. PTT rates can be explained further with a handout if need be. This is not perfect math. This is a math that was engineered to try to achieve fairness in how we treat a manufactured home and a site-built home. It does a pretty good job, but I do expect it'll give the future legislatures additional work to clarify and revisit this if it doesn't seem that it's at perfect parity or as regulations continue to change. Your Senate Finance Committee did hear from additional witnesses, and we voted 6-0-1 in support of this bill, and we asked the Senate to concur. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development? I understand we have an amendment. Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this exemplifies what happens when we are rushing at the end of the session to get bills out. I believe this week Finance had to add a comma, but the comma's placement made a big difference in the final bill. This is another one. This would essentially move the effective dates out a year. We were talking about the 2027 fiscal year. That's what we're about to finalize all the budgets on. And we're too far down that ramp to make any changes. So this would move all the dates out a year so that the fiscal impact, even though they aren't great, would be dealt with a year or more from now. And I did run this by the Committee of Finance yesterday. Nobody said no, so I would assume that we have approved it.
So the question is, shall the proposal of amendment of the Committee on Economic Development as amended be further amended as recommended by Senator Cummings? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The ayes have it, and you have amended the proposal of amendment of the Committee on Economic Development. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? I'm not there yet. As amended. The question now is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development as amended? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have proposed to the House to amend the bill as proposed by the Committee on Economic Development. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H 757. Senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Windsor, are you offering a report?
I'm offering a suggestion. If I might.
Okay.
Might we exchange the order so that I can give my colleague in Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs a moment to catch his breath before he does S-198 and instead have me do H-639 first. That's my request.
Your request is granted, Senator. The House has considered the Senate proposal of amendment on H 639 and has concurred therein with further proposal of amendment. The question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment? Senator from Windsor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs considered the change, and I'll explain it in a second, but has requested, has agreed to not concur and has requested a committee of conference. This, as you may recall, is our genetic data privacy bill. We added a 2-month cure period. The House had thought about a 14-day cure period before the private right of action could be exercised. We, in Senate Economic Development, we added a 2-month cure period with then the PRA following. House Commerce felt very strongly that genetic data, once it is breached, once it is sold, cannot be reclaimed. There is no cure, they felt, for genetic data escaping the control of the direct-to-consumer genetic testing company, or the company that was dealing with it. And they feel this was a catch in our work, and we don't agree, and so that is why we were requesting a committee of conference to hear them out and to discuss it further. But your Senate is wanting very much to continue its original proposal. Thank you.
Senator from Windsor has moved that the Senate not concur in the House proposal of amendment and that a committee of conference be appointed. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Committee of conference is as follows: Senator Clarkson, Senator Brock, Senator Chittenden. S-198 was passed by the House with proposal of amendment. The question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment? Senator Chittenden, from Chittenden.
I appreciate the break. I do talk pretty quickly. Probably better off we had some need a drink out there. All right, so bottom line up front, your Senate Economic Development Committee did vote to concur with the House without further proposal amendment. So this is important to recognize. I personally think the House made our bill better. So I want to give them that kudos. So it was originally a 4-0-1, but I've since heard that the person that was not in the room does support this. So it was a 5-0 vote to concur with the House. That being the case, I think it still is useful to just tell you a little bit about what the House did to make the bill better. So this is the tobacco bill, if you remember. What the House did was, and I will say, admit that a few senators actually raised some concerns as it left the Senate, and I said, you know what, they'll fix it in the House, and they did. So what the House did, as passed by the Senate, this bill would repeal prohibitions on and penalties for purchase, use, and possession of tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, and tobacco paraphernalia by a person under 21 years of age. And we did still increase the civil penalty for using fake IDs to purchase these items from $50 to $100, along with existing potential for up to 10 hours of community service. So as it left this chamber, this Senate, in fact, somebody joked, a 5-year-old could walk around with a pack of cigarettes and it'd be legal. So that's effectively what we sent out of here. And so the House had concerns with that. They wanted to still make it against the rules for minors to walk around with tobacco products. And I concur. The House proposal of amendment restores the prohibition of purchase, use, and possession by a person under 21 years of age, and restores language saying that these items can be immediately confiscated, but maintains the Senate's elimination of the $25 civil penalty for possession. The House proposal also repeals the civil penalty for using a fake ID to purchase these items and replaces them with a choice of between up to 10 hours of community service or participation in a tobacco cessation program. Concerns were raised in the Senate Economic Development, General and Housing Affairs Committee about the shift away from community service except for in restorative practices programs. The court systems can be overloaded with those things, but the recognizing that the participation in tobacco cessation programs as an option leaves this as a viable path to address kids that might have tobacco on them and giving them better supports and solutions to address that. So again, your Senate committee concurred with that proposal. They also, under the furnishing tobacco products to minors, the House proposes to specify that civil monetary policies can be imposed on the clerk or any other individual who sells or furnishes tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or tobacco paraphernalia to a person under 21 years of age, in addition to administrative monetary penalties and license suspensions for the retailer. Internet sales. So on section 1010, the House proposes to require annual reporting by the Department of Liquor and Lottery and the Office of the Attorney General to the General Assembly regarding enforcement of Vermont laws relating to online sales of tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, and tobacco paraphernalia. That was raised at various times during this conversation about whack-a-mole was used as an example in trying to address online sales of these things to get a better idea of how that landscape is evolving and if more resources are necessary in order to track tobacco sources online. The House also gives the AGO, the Attorney General's Office, enforcement authority for violations of the prohibitions of deceptive tobacco products and tobacco substitutes, including deeming engaging in prohibited conduct to be a violation of Vermont's Consumer Protection Act. In section 2, the House proposes to add a new section that amends certain aspects of DLL's regulatory authority over licenses and its ability to impose limited administrative penalties. And in section 5, the House proposal of amends certain definitions in the tobacco tax chapter to ensure changes this bill makes to definition 7 VSA chapter 40 do not inadvertently affect the Department of Tax's ability to administer and enforce existing tobacco laws. Section 10, the House proposes the proposal directs the DLL, Department of Liquor and Lottery, in consultation with the AGO, the Attorney General's Office, to report to the General Assembly by January 15th, 2027 on their compliance efforts and on whether adding staff would materially improve compliance with and enforcement of the tobacco laws. Lastly, in section 11, the House proposes to put the AGO in collaboration with the Department of Taxes and DLL in charge of a report due to the General Assembly by January 15th, 2027 on the taxation of tobacco products and tobacco substitutes and alternatives to using tax stamps. The bill is passed. The bill as passed by the Senate had the Department of Taxes leading the report in consultation with DLL and AGO. This just broadens that orientation and responsibility. So again, your Senate Economic Development, General and Housing Affairs Committee voted 5-0 on a straw poll to concur with these changes, and we encourage the Senate to concur as well.
The question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment on S-198? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have concurred in the House proposal of amendment on S-198. Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. Given that we are making good time this morning, I would move that the Senate suspend its rules in order to take 686, an act relating to expanding identification of certain lobbying advertisements, off the notice calendar and bring it up for immediate action.
Senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate suspend its rules in order to take H-686 off the notice calendar for immediate action. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we will take H-686 up for immediate action. I don't. We'll try it. Okay, we'll try it. We have on the calendar for action H-686, which was passed by the House on March 17th of 2026. was referred to the Committee on Government Operations, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House that the bill be amended as found in today's calendar, and that with such proposal of amendment, the bill ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 686, an act relating to expanding identification of certain lobbying advertisements.
Recognize the senator from Chittenden, Senator Vyhovsky, for the report of the Committee on Government Operations.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is, I think, an important bill as we think about transparency and money spent in lobbying and influencing policy. The strike all amendment from your Senate Government Operations Committee can be found on page 3922 of today's calendar. This bill does not change the definition of lobbying or lobbyist or advertising. Currently, while the legislature is in session, lobbying activity as is defined must be reported if over $1,000 or more is spent on that lobbying advertising. However, in the off session, it does not. So what this bill seeks to do is to extend that reporting for the whole year. The other few things that the bill does is that it defines what the description of the advertising needs to be. In current law, it says that a brief description of the advertisement or advertising campaign needs to occur. However, we were shown some of the brief descriptions of advertising campaigns, and some of them said advertisement. We already know it's an advertisement. It's an advertising disclosure. And so we are putting into law a little bit more of an explanation of what we mean by a brief description. So it will include any enacted or introduced bill or issue that's featured in the advertisement or advertisement campaign, any specific person in the advertisement or advertising campaign, and whether the intent or the content in the advertisement campaign is offering an opinion of support, opposition, or neutrality. Really, this was just meant to get at what the current law brief description wanted, but wasn't getting. So we thought we'd provide a little bit more explanation of what that means. The other addition from what the House sent us did include changes to what advertising was, and we felt like at this late in the session, we needed a lot more testimony, so we struck that from what they sent us, and it no longer changes the definition of an advertisement. We also added, because we're extending this out for the whole year, and there was some concern that there might be a possibility where electioneering and lobbying, the Venn diagram crossed a little. And so we added in here that if the advertisement is electioneering and it is reported in the campaign finance system and might cross over into lobbying, it does not also need to be reported in the lobbying report. Really, this was meant to ensure that people in those rare instances where the Venn diagram might cross, they didn't have to report it twice. That's what the bill does, and the effect will take effect on passage. Your Committee on Government Operations heard from Meadow Hill Consulting, Legislative Counsel, the Vermont Public Interest Research Group, the Secretary of State's Office, the Associated Builders and Contractors, and the House sponsor, as well as the Director of Elections from the Secretary of State's Office. So we heard from two different people from the Secretary of State's Office, and the vote in committee was 4-0-1, and we asked for the Senate support.
The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Government Operations? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've proposed to the House to amend the bill as proposed by the Committee on Government Operations. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H 686. Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that said, I would move that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message the actions taken this morning on H 550, an act relating to gender equity within Vermont's correctional facilities, H 639, an act relating to genetic data privacy, H 648, an act relating to banking, insurance, and securities, H 841, an act relating to miscellaneous animal welfare procedures, H 932, an act relating to the regulation of forestry under Act 250. H 937, an act relating to miscellaneous judiciary procedures. H 938, an act relating to establishing the Vermont Homelessness Response Continuum. And H 941, an act relating to municipal regulation of agriculture, to the House forthwith.
The senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message our actions on H 550, H 639, H 648, H 841, H 932, H 937, H 938, and H 941 to the House forthwith. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Senator from Chittenden.
With that said, Mr. President, I would move that pending announcements, the Senate stand in adjournment until 10 a.m. Friday, May 22nd, 2026.
Are there any announcements? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance will meet at 2 o'clock. Hopefully, it'll be a very short meeting.
Are there any further announcements? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Government operations will meet at 2. And if I might, we normally handle confirmations on Friday. I note in the calendar today, there are 5 underlined reports. I believe there are 2 from one of the senators from Chittenden Central, 1 from Chittenden Southeast, 1 from Orange, and 1 from Bennington. And the hope, I believe, is that we get to those reports tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, the senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until 10 a.m. Friday, May 22nd of 2026. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we'll stand in adjournment until 10 a.m. Friday, May 22nd of 2026.